How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here. It's June 23rd, 2025, but I probably already know the answer to that question I just asked, because if you're watching Mets content on June 23rd or relative to the day of this video coming out, then you know that's been doom and gloom as of late in this rather June swoon for this Mets team, dropping 8 of their past 9 games, 500 so far in the month of June at 10-10, but they need to pick things up big time, and they have a massive 4-game set beginning tonight here against the Atlanta Braves for their final series in what has been back-to-back series of playing NL East rivals, in which the Mets have dropped there in Atlanta, dropped there in Philadelphia. Let's see what happens in this 4-game set. We're going to deep dive it and preview it all here before we wrap up the show. But before we get there, let's get into the immediate reinforcements for this Mets team, as everything is aligned for Mark Vientos to return from his IL stint here with the Mets as soon as today. And we're going to get into how the likely corresponding move looks like. It's headlined by Ronnie Mauricio. Why exactly is that over guys like Brett Baty and Luis Angel Acuna, barring changes? From there, we're going to talk on the pitching end. Jonah Tong, Noah McLean, 2 dominant Mets prospects, 1 in AA, 1 in AAA. Tong is ready for AAA. We're going to talk about when he's expected to get the call there. We're going to headline those promotions, the consistency of Noah McLean, as well as getting into the hitting front, as there, again, have been some significant promotions for key Mets minor league bats, including their former first-round pick there in Carson Bench from just this past year. A lot to get into on that front. Very exciting news, including some updates on the bullpen. What is happening with Max Kranick? How long is he going to be out? When is Brooks Raley returning, as he was stellar yet again in his latest rehab outing? That and so much more Mets land is what we're about to deep dive. So sit back, relax, and get ready for your guy Wardy to let you all know what is happening here in Mets land. Thank you guys kindly, as always, for hitting that like and subscribe on your way, and let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below to the following topics today, everybody. And as always, shout out to our amazing sponsor here at SeatGeek that has you covered with all of your ticketing needs, folks. If you guys don't know SeatGeek, they have you covered with over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today for a reason. And it's not just what I love so much about utilizing their app as someone who's utilized it well before they became a sponsor on the platform, at which they're now here with us throughout the entire course of the MLB season. Thanks to you guys for utilizing our promo code down below. But the reason why you guys got to utilize it is because of this. Their app is so easy to navigate. That's why I love SeatGeek, regardless of them being a sponsor here. And their grading scale system, as you guys see, it's graded 1 through 10, red to green. If you're purchasing a ticket in the red or orange yellowish area that's more in the 1 through 5, it's not a good bang for your buck, and you should seek tickets elsewhere there in the SeatGeek app. If you're more in the green range, 7 through 10, that's a great bang for your buck, and you guys should seek those tickets there in the app, whether it's for Mets tickets, as you guys just saw there, whether it's comedy show tickets, concert show tickets, different types of sporting event tickets, you name it, SeatGeek has you covered, everybody. So make sure you head over there to SeatGeek by utilizing our promo code WARDY10, link down below, hyperlink for you guys to click and add right away if you have the app downloaded. And as always, shout out to SeatGeek for being an amazing sponsor here on the platform. But as we hop right back into this, everybody, let's begin today's discussion with the most important news, which is, in many ways to some, that Mark Vientos is expected to be activated here from his latest rehab stint. And Mark, as we know, who's been out the past couple weeks there dealing with that leg injury, that hammy or so, it does look like that even after having some underwhelming games, mind you, he only played like 3 or so games there that we saw in rehab. It wasn't like he needed to light the world on fire to warrant the call-up, but Mark is expected to return to this Mets team. And let's get into all the immediate pros and cons that come with someone like Mark Vientos, because we know that this is the Mark Vientos, the same man who is just a season removed from his first true rookie season, finding himself in the category of the following, everybody. We're looking at 27 home runs, right around in 111 games, mind you, and clutching up big time there that we saw in postseason play. What I love so much about Mark, especially in his rookie year last year, was how much he was able to clutch up for this Mets team in high leverage situations, runner and scoring position situations, without having to lean on too much on guys like Lindor at times, or even the occasional Mr. OMG and Jose Iglesias to give you a big pinch hit there, or a big single in the 9th inning there to tie the ball game, whatever it might be. The Mets have had some heroics for sure this past calendar year, but Mark Vientos was right in the heart of it all, and I would make the rightful argument that Mark was one of the most important batters for the Mets in their lineup throughout the course of the season last year. Without Vientos, they don't necessarily get that spark and that consistency out of the hot corner that they otherwise got. Defensively, a liability. We all know that. Offensively, though, there's a lot to like, and while Mark did have himself a high, his BABIP last year had him very favored in the sense that he had a lady luck on his side, this year that has not been nearly the case, so I do expect expect Mark Vientos to get more out of the rut that he's found himself in this year, not only because of inconsistencies between playing times at third base DH and coming off the bench, but also just the confidence. We know that's an important thing with young players. And Vientos, who had 27 bombs and 71 RBIs a year ago for 33 above league average as a batter there on the WRC Plus, he's batting 6 home runs, 21 RBIs in just 53 games this season, a 230 average, and a 93 WRC Plus, which is 7% below league average as a batter. What Vientos did greatly last year was be a positive offensive player significantly while being still net negative defensively. This year, he's net negative defensively, and he's worse than what he already was last year defensively, but his offense has been that drastic difference. He's a minus 1.9 per Fangraphs on the offensive end. So we know that Mark obviously needs to get in a groove. And if the Mets are going to be getting any key production from their in-house talent before seeking external talent leading up to the trade deadline, they're going to need a guy like Vientos go out and be more the guy that we saw a year ago. And I do have a level of faith in Mark getting there. And just trust me for a minute, everybody. If you're the same Mets fans that fall in the category as viewing 53 game sample size for Mark Vientos this season as the end-all be-all, then you probably aren't the best fans to hear the rightful criticism from, because you're the same fans as well that, you know, completely disregard that large 111 game sample size on 454 plate appearances versus well less than half that so far here in 2025 versus his rookie 2024 campaign. Do I 100% agree that Mark Vientos is a liability defensively? Absolutely. Mark knows this. Everyone knows this. And this is not a slight on him. It's just the matter of fact of the current situation. The stats will all tell you that Vientos is on an island by himself as one of, if not the worst defensive third baseman out of the National League right now statistically. And the problem here is that, you know how there are some times where the stats don't necessarily equal the eye test? Well, in the case of Mark and his defensive game, they most certainly equal the eye test. I mean, Vientos, you are holding your breath every time that there is a sharp liner that's hit in his direction, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. The way that you know for certain what the outcome is going to be more often than not when you have the captain and David Wright there for all those years in Flushing, Queens. But fast forward to present day, Mark Vientos, as we know, who grew up a Mets fan, who's thriving, very happy to be here. And it is funny kind of seeing that Alvarez highlight, knowing that he's no longer with the team at the moment as he's been sent back down to AAA. But let's get off the tangent here, Wardy. The point is that Mark Vientos has something to prove now, and he has a chip on his shoulder, because what has happened since Mark went down with injury, the Mets have an abundance of infield options. While no one has really ran away with third base or that infield in general, you have Mauricio, Beatty, and Acuna. And now the big question is, which piece of the puzzle out of those three is going to be sent down? Because, you know, when Vientos first went down with injury, we proposed on the platform how maybe Jared Young is going to be the corresponding move. You know, that would make a level of sense if Jared Young is going to end up being that guy. But if it's not going to be Jared Young, everybody, who is it going to be? And my honest opinion is that it's going to be Ronnie Mauricio. I expect it to be Ronnie Mauricio. So when we find out the official move here in just the coming hours from the time this video coming out, more than likely, you guys will likely see Mets transactions. Mark Vientos called up there, reactivated there from his IL stint. Ronnie Mauricio sent back down to AAA. And the reason as to why Ronnie looks more boxed out than Beatty and Acuna as of now is the following. Luisangel Acuna has been in a limited late game defensive pinch runner role, and the Mets like him there. The Mets actually really like Acuna there. So if they send him down, that's more of a product than just wanting to give him daily reps than anything else. Because while his bat has been fickle, we know that Acuna did record 2 hits there that we saw in the series finale loss for the Mets just a, a series or so ago. What was that? The series finale, was it against the Braves? No, I want to say, I'm trying to think when that was. It wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was the series finale against the Rays. That's how many games ago it's been, because again, this past week has felt like a fever dream with how bad the team has played. But point is that Acuna is so elite on the base pass, and the Mets are actually one of the better teams base running in all baseball, especially when it comes to their effectiveness and stealing bags. They're amongst the best in the game right now, and Acuna helps add that implementation. Not that Ronnie isn't fast, because he is, but he's not Luisangel Acuna impactful on the base pass. Brett Beatty, what does Brett bring besides, decent base running on the base pass? Well, he is the most defensively polished option at the hot corner out of anyone the Mets currently have on the major league roster. He's better than Acuna at the hot corner. He's better than Mauricio at the hot corner. And while Mauricio wasn't a huge liability the entire time there, we know that Beatty is more that go-to guy. And if the Mets are going to be balancing these young in-house options and want to at least keep 2 out of the 3, then one naturally has to go. And Ronnie Mauricio appears to be the man on the outside looking in, because while he has had a couple home runs and he has looked impressive at times, the at-bats in general, I think, have been underwhelming enough, and I don't think he's moved the needle enough. And the other areas of his game, whether it's defensively or his base running, to necessarily warrant why the Mets need to keep him on this roster. Because I get it, it's a lefty bat option, that's great, but when you already have Beatty here, who's just getting back there from that groin injury that he sustained that had him out pretty much the past week or so while avoiding a IL stint, unless things really fall off a cliff with Beatty, which who knows, they may very well do exactly that, it appears that Ronnie is likely going to be that guy that is parted with, at least for the time being. And should that be the case, everybody, I want to hear what your thoughts are in the comments down below on that front. Would you agree with Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns' decision to go the route of sending down Mr. Roddy Mauricio? Because that has been widely reported as the likely candidate of the group. While it's not officially official at the time of this video coming out, it'll probably be officially official depending on by time you watch this video already. So we're just getting on top of it ahead of time. But speaking hypothetically, if it's not Mauricio and say it's Beatty, the reason why it would be Beatty is because of his underwhelming play. They probably should have put him on the IL stint. They just did not do that, and they're going to give him more daily reps there in Syracuse. If it's Acuna, it's because they really want to give him more daily reps in Syracuse. Acuna has been more snake bitten than any other young Mets batter as of late when it comes to limited playing time, given their multiple options there at second base, at third base, etc. And mind you, Acuna is a guy that won National League Rookie of the Month there for the first month of the season, fallen off a cliff since then, but that's one in direct hand with a lack of proper utilization, not being in the ballgame nearly as much for starts, but far more as a defense replacement and as a pinch runner or a pinch hitter later in said ball game. So we understand what Acuna's role is right now, and I think the Mets are content with it there. So should that be the case, everybody, just don't be surprised if Ryan Mauricio is a corresponding move. As much as Jared Young felt like that could be the corresponding move, I think Carlos Mendoza and the Mets like Jared Young, and if I'm being honest, Jared Young has taken some at-bats I felt have been more quality than Ronnie that we've seen in this limited sample size. Young is very sweet and miss in what you're getting for sure, but the bar is fairly low right now when it comes to the Mets. DH, bench options right now, as we're still waiting the wings for that Jesse Winker return that sadly is not as close to nearing as we all hope as Mets fans. But going on from talking about Mark Vientos to be activated and Ronnie, the likely corresponding move, everybody, let's now get into the next topic in Metsland, because the next topic in Metsland has everything to do with their dominant pitching prospects. And oh boy, how they looked fantastic. And oh man, are they going to impact this Mets team? Now the question is, are they going to impact them as soon as this season, everybody? Well, they might just go ahead and do exactly that. And if they do go ahead and do exactly that, everybody, it's going to be thanks to this man in part, and that is, yes, Mr. Jonah Tong. Let's talk about Jonathan and how he continues to jaw drop every Mets fan, their mother, including myself. Tong just went 7.2 shutty 48 hours ago in his latest start on 97 pitches. Mind you, 70 of those pitches were for strikes. So to say that was effective was an understatement. 2 hits, 1 walk, 0 earned runs, 11 strikeouts, 1.75 ERA. Folks, we just did a video on Tong no later than a week ago, and I did tell you guys that by the time we reach the end of the month of June, Tong will have been called up to AAA Syracuse. I'm going to be honest, I will be surprised if he's not called up within this next week. What else does Jonathan need to prove at the Rebel Pony level outside of being the most dominant pitcher in all of pitchers available at the AA level across minor league baseball right now? What else does Tom need to do? I really don't know, guys, because look at the numbers with me. This man has been simply unhittable the past month and a half plus, especially. He just gets better and better. He's aging like a fine wine this year. The way that Brandon Sproat was such a riser last year in the farm is the way that Tom, I think, is dominant, because Tom looked great last year, but Tom is dominating greater than he even did a season ago, which is saying a lot, which means he's not only adjusting properly to these higher levels, but he's continuing to develop in the proper fashion and not, knock on wood, regressing at this point in time. So for Jonathan, everybody, again, this is not a matter of if he will be called up to AAA, but when. And the expectation now, after dominating as good as he did in this latest outing, is that he should be up in this Mets bullpen very, very soon. And that is very encouraging to hear too as a fan. And I apologize, not bullpen, I meant to say rotation. And when the Mets do eventually call up Jonathan, will it happen this season? That's a big question too, because the fact that Ton isn't in Syracuse yet is that biggest barrier in the road, because he still needs more professional at-bats there in the minor leagues before even being considered for this team. But the fact that Jonathan isn't as outlandish of a thought, especially in the second half, as it otherwise felt heading into the season, is kind of crazy. And it's a further testament to how dominant he has been this season more than it has been anything else. I think the dominance is what's outweighed the lack of of consistency for the Mets rotation. Because even bearing that in mind, they're not going to rush a kid like Tong up. They're going to do it when they truly feel that's ready to bring him up. And Tong looks so good that he very well could be major league ready again as soon as this calendar season. But a player who I think is a bit more polished than Tong right now, at least in what you're getting at the major league level, especially in results, and a guy that he's likely going to be teammates with as soon as starting everybody. What is it going to be in the coming days? Is it going to be a week from now? Is it going to somehow, some way be more than a week from now? Whenever it may be, everybody, we do have to appreciate and get into the expectation now for Mr. Noel McLain, because as you guys can see here, Noel McLain had himself his latest outing, and he was yet again rock solid for the Syracuse Mets. Again, not laying the world on fire as good as Tong, and I would like to preface by saying that the highlights that you're watching by McLain are not accurate to the stat line down below. These highlights are back from a late May game outing. I just want to run some B-roll of McLain pitching this season for you guys to watch because I couldn't find any, unfortunately, for his latest start just from this past day or so. But in 5 innings, he had 3 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 90 pitches for a 2.68 ERA. Noel McLain has been fantastic at both the Rummel Pony and the Syracuse Mets level, leading to a call up there to Syracuse over the past calendar month or so that we've seen. And we know that McLain has a frisbee of a sweeper. We know that he has a fastball that can play up. That's a little deceptive. And we know that he has a 4 to 5 pitch mix that's really more of a starter mix that might be able to impact this Mets team as soon as today at the major league level. And we are not long removed from McLain actually being considered as that spot starter for this past Friday loss 10-2 to the Philadelphia Phillies in Philly, where your guy Wardy sadly in attendance, where Blade Tidwell was not the liability, but rather the bullpen, and the heading and scoring position woes continued. McLain, though, what is the big bugaboo behind calling up Noel McLain? And the same obviously applies with Tong and others. When you have a pitcher like McLain who's not actively on the 40-man, when you call him up, that is going to start his clock, meaning that if the Mets pitch this man at all this year, they're going to lose the first year of control that he has under his true contract. And they obviously don't want to waste away a good first productive year for McLain. So same applies to Tong, but these guys, what do they have in common is when they do impact the Mets, when they do get the call, the expectation is that they should hopefully stay here versus it being more of a one-off the way that we've seen with guys like the Blade Tidwells, the Brandon Woodells, the Justin Hagemans of the world, you name it. McLain has such great plus stuff, as does Tong, that you're led to believe that once these guys do get up here, that the expectation, the hope is that they will stay up here, which is why the Mets aren't going to necessarily rush either up here as much as we would like to see it as fans, but rather we do expect to see at least one of these guys, if not Brandon Sproat potentially, by the time we get to the second half of the season. We're getting very close, obviously. We're oh so close to the All-Star break, but what are the Mets going to do here in the case of McLain? I do think that he will be that next man up for them to consider when they actually have a little bit more of breathing room and an opportunity to let McLain try to thrive in this Metropolitan rotation. Let me know all your thoughts on the front Noel McLain and Jonathan in the comments down below, everybody. Because going on from talking about Jonathan and Noel McLain, now let's get into some other key prospect news that we have to get into. I'm actually going to pan over here and show you because I want to give a massive shout out, because this is when I think Mets minor league reporting, there are many great people in this space, especially, but when I think of people that are maybe more slept on that you don't think of as much, and I really do hope he sees this at some point because I shout him out a lot more than I think he even realizes. Guys, I need to give another shout out, a massive shout out to Mr. Daniel Wexler rules on X, because he is one of the most informed guys on the minor league front out of anyone in the Mets space. I mean, and I'm not going to say names, but he's more informed some people that are, getting paid big bucks just to be covering solely this area of the Mets. And he does it just for the fun, hobby, and he's a diehard fan. Ernest Dove, a great friend of the platform. Shout out Ernest as well. Another man who's smaller, creator as well, but is really locked in on the prospects. They both have their respective sources here. And as you guys can see, Colin Houck is getting the call finally to the Brooklyn Cyclones. And this is really important news, because if you guys have been following the platform, if you've been following our usual Big Mets update segments when I do our prospect deep dives and get into the nightly performances, Colin Houck was, in my opinion, the most unimpressive, or one of the most unimpressive Mets batters in any of their farm last year, from St. Lucie all the way up to AAA Syracuse. His first year in the pros was abysmal last year as a 2023 first round pick by the Mets there and under Billy Epler. And Houck this season really grinded things out big time, looking so much better, over 800 OPS, finally hitting the baseball well, hitting for power, hitting for contact. And funny enough, on the day he was actually called up to the Cyclones this past year, so it was the same day that he won the game in a walk-off fashion via an actual walk. So kind of funny, but Colin Howe, congratulations on getting the call of the Brooklyn Cyclones. That is great news, and because they need more infield room and more room in general for some bats there at the Brooklyn Cyclones level, that means there are some guys that got to get sent up to the Rumble Ponies. And it's also reported that, yes, Jacob Reimer and Carson Bench have been promoted to the Rumble Ponies. And this is tremendous news, guys. If you guys don't know Jacob Reimer, Reimer's been playing third base. He's been playing all over the infield if he's not getting a DH rep there for the for the Brooklyn Cyclones initially, and he was tearing the cover off the ball. We're looking at, right around a 300 average, and north of a 900 to 1,000 OPS. Carson Bench, 300 average, right around 900 or so OPS. Bench, first round pick out of OSU a year ago. Good buddies and former teammates with Noah McClain as well. Bench, I've been telling you guys the longest time, not a matter of if, but when these guys get moved up to the AA level, and now it's happening. Bench will be entered the fold there with Jet Williams as well, which is very exciting. Nick Morabito, Ryan Clifford. Just when you thought that the Rumble Ponies couldn't get more stacked than what they already are, they just got a lot better. They just added 2 lethal bats from the league below, and if they perform at all like they have so far this year, the Rumble Ponies are going to go all the way this year in their respective league. They just are dummy stacked right now between not just pitching, but on the offensive end. They have so many weapons to choose from, and the reason why we have to highlight these things, everybody, is because these guys are not as far removed from the bigs as maybe you think, especially Carson Bench. I think Bench is going to be up with the Mets within the next year or so. I mean, I really am bullish on Bench. I think the way that he not only performed as well as he did in OSU, but I really think that helped him get prepared for the professional level, whereas guys are coming straight out of high school, need a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more development. I think Bench is a guy that will be in the bigs sometime within the next calendar year. I don't know when that's going to be, but I do have the confidence that he will get there, so I obviously hope to see it happen. And the last on the calls, Mr. Alex Grillo and Luis Moreno have been promoted to AAA Syracuse. Great news as well. Both Alex and Moreno have looked good respectively there that we have seen there at the AA level. The Mets have an abundance of relief arms, especially that have just dominated so far that we've seen this season, whether it's in St. Lucie, whether it's in Brooklyn, whether it's in Bennington, or whether it's here in Syracuse at the AAA level. A lot to like there, and obviously they needed more arms too, because there's been a lot of transactions happening with the Mets as of late. They just had Tyler Zuber up, as we know. They just had Garza up, then they sent him down. They've had a lot of influx on the pitching end as of late there, this New York Metropolitan team, which I think is an absolutely slam dunk perfect segue, everybody, into our further pitching discussion that we have to have today. Because as we know, not only did the Mets promote pitchers and the ones that you guys see here, as well as what they're likely going to do very soon in the case of Jonathan, let's also talk about the positive on the pitching end in the case of Brooks Raley. Because in case you guys don't know, Brooks Raley, who already had himself a scroll-setting 1 hit allowed, 2 strikeouts in his first rehab outing a couple weeks ago or so, just has latest rehab outing 48 hours ago, and guys, he was good again. Another scroll-setting for St. Lucie, had himself a hit given up, and yet again another pair of strikeouts. Brooks Raley is expected to potentially impact this Mets bullpen as soon as early to mid-July, coming off of his rehab stint from initially that reconstructive Tommy John surgery that derailed what was otherwise a dominant start to the 2024 season for Raley, who had 8 scoreless outings to begin his 2024 season, while everything else was absolutely doom and gloom in Mets land to begin a season ago. But now Brooks Raley back with this Mets team, veteran, dominant southpaw reliever. If you guys follow the platform, you know that Raley's one of my favorite relievers that the Mets have. I love crafty lefties. I love guys that also have decent velocity. And Raley, while he's not going to light the world on fire, has a nice balance in what you're getting with his multiple pitch mix, and is a perfect high and low leverage option versus Jose Castillo, who we're relying on as the NLBL when he is a fringe MLB reliever, as the Mets initially picked him up. And then you have AJ Minter, Danny Young, both out for the year. So the Mets, we know, are likely going to be seeking, not just likely, they are seeking potential external help on the bullpen front there from now leading up to the MLB traded line. But when it comes to lefty options, who makes sense for them on the left front, Brooks Raley might perform well enough once he returns from rehab to kind of have the Mets in a great position where maybe they don't need to go out of their way for a lefty that profiles similar, because they already have a guy who's healthy and dominant the way that Raley is. My counter, though, is that even if Raley comes back and looks dominant, I think the Mets should absolutely go out and land a true high leverage piece that can throw gas. And there's no better high leverage lefty option right now that will likely be available in the market this time a month from now than Mr. Aroldis Chapman of the Boston Red Sox. Let me know your thoughts about all that in the comments down below. We broke down Chapman plenty on the platform over the past week here. And speaking of not only Chapman and Brooks Raley, let's now shift from talking about southpaws to talking about right-handers, specifically friends of the platform. Because if you guys don't know Max Kranick, good buddy here, I'm wishing him the absolute best in his recovery. I actually probably will reach out to him today or tomorrow, just tell him that I'm wishing him well in his rehab. I've interacted with Max a couple times throughout the season. Great guy, met him in person. We had him on the live show, had an amazing day as well. And Kranick, who grew up a diehard Mets fan, obviously got off to a roaring hot start with the Mets and was one of their most reliable reliever options throughout the first 3 to 4 weeks in the season. The problem is that since then, Kranick has come down to reality a little bit. Obviously didn't have the sharpest second month of the season, leading to an ultimate demotion there because the Mets need to make a roster move on the bullpen end. Kranick gets a call back up, and now he's sadly on the injured list, and he will not be returning in the immediate future. Kranick is going to be out likely the next 3 to 4 weeks or so, shut down next 3 to 4 weeks. So we're not going to see Kranick back still for a decent chunk of time. You're going to be looking more deeper into summer before he potentially impacts his bullpen again. But the good news is that this is a ligament issue in the case of Kranick when it comes to, I believe they labeled it, I want to say it was, an elbow strain along those lines. But the positive news is that Kranick, who had Tommy John surgery a year and a half ago or so, doesn't appear like he's in that direction to need that again. So it appears that they dodged a bullet, thankfully. Just has inflammation. They got to get that down, obviously, and get him right again and build him back up. So Max Kranick will be out the next month plus, but the positive news, at least, is that it appears, as of now, at least, that the Mets have avoided a season-long injury in the case of him. We'll see how he progresses and hopefully doesn't regress and have any setbacks. I'm looking forward to seeing Kranick be an impactful reliever for this Mets bullpen, because when he was right earlier this season, everybody, he was truly no panic Kranick. No matter the situation that you threw him in, he's able to get you quick outs and get you out of that inning, and also had some gas for the velocity in doing so. I like Kranick, not just because I have a good relationship with the guy, but the reason why I have a good relationship with the guy is because I saw him after following him and knowing not only he's a great story as a Mets fan, but he's actually a rock-solid reliever as well. And I think we're going to see more positives out of Kranick before this season wraps up naturally. But that is what we have for you guys on the front of Mark Vientos, Carson Benj, and Mr. Colin Houck, Jonathan and Noah McLean, Mr. Max Kranick, Brooks Raley, and now last but not least, everybody, let me leave you with the following, which is the Atlanta Braves are back in town tonight, sadly. And because the Braves are in town, everybody, we have to quickly preview this matchup as game one is tonight. Paul Blackburn, who was Paulie Mr. batting practice in Atlanta just not even a week ago with his sub-70 ERA, is facing off against Mr. Schwellenbach, who the Mets, mind you, did not fare terrible against the last time out, but had nothing to show for it because, again, they've had a lot of fluctuation with their production as of late. Schwellenbach with his 3.26 ERA toes the rubber game one. Game two, Spencer Strider was 3.89 ERA, in which the Mets usually hit pretty well, is facing off against Mr. Frankie Montas. As we know, Frankie is making his season debut for the Mets. And in case you guys don't know Frankie Montas, he had right around a 12-plus ERA in his rehab outings over a month span. So what we get of Montas is a massive question mark, but as I told my guy Jolly on the Shea Station podcast, the same way I will tell each and every one of you, everybody, is that I'm a firm believer that, I expect Frankie Montas to be productive and good for the Mets this year. And I hope that in this start that he's at least giving the Mets 4 2/3 innings of, 2 earned run baseball, 2 walks, no more, no less, that kind of thing. Ain't going to be dominant, but I just hope he is somewhat productive than anything else, because I know the bar is fairly low depending on the Mets fan you talk to and their expectation for Montas. But David Stearns threw $34 million at him for a reason. He gave up on Severino quickly for a reason. And I think we should have a level of faith in Stearns and this Mets pitching lab to try to get the best out of their pitching, even with the rut they currently find themselves in. And game three, we have Fuentes there towing the rubber, a youngster right-hander for the Atlanta Braves, recently called 7.2 ERA, facing off against Clay Holmes, who has just over a 3 ERA coming off of a not-so-sharp lace outing, who walked everybody and their mother. And the series finale, everybody, Mr. Grant Holmes, who had a 15 strikeout performance his last time out there, but lost against the Colorado Rockies somehow, some way. A 3.71 ERA for the young right-hander, and facing off against Griffin Canning, who has a 3.91 ERA, 67 strikeouts there, and that does it for your 4-game set, everybody. I hope at minimum the Mets split this series, and I hope at maximum they absolutely curb stomp and sweep. There's no better way to get back in a groove and get momentum back on your side than dominate it and at least rival the way that you have otherwise been dominated the first 2 series of this past week of baseball between the Braves, the Phillies. No bueno, don't want that. Can the Mets at least finish 3-7 at minimum over this stretch against, these teams? Can they win this series to make it at least closer to 500? Or is this going to be another terrible series for the Mets where they don't hit with runners in scoring position? The pitching's lackadaisical, and the bullpen needs massive reinforcements because everyone's been utilized lately. If it is the latter, I will see you guys there for our rant segments and our post-game show coverage as soon as later tonight. If it is not the latter and the Mets actually get some more consistency in their offense, including maybe the implementation of Mark Vientos and his impact right away, we'll talk about that as well. Either way, folks, we have you covered when it comes to all things New York Mets here throughout the entire course of the season. As not just you amazing Mets fans that make it possible, but it's also our great friends, and not only SeatGeek, Moo, but also BetUS that have you covered for all of your sports betting needs. So before we get out of here, guys, again, if you guys want to dabble, if you want to bet responsibly, head over to betus.com.pa today. Utilize our promo code YouTube150. That way you two get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for whatever you guys want to bet on. And as you guys can see here, the Mets are actually the money line underdog tonight for this game one matchup against the Braves at plus 119. So do you guys want to biasly bet and maybe love the fact that the Mets are underdogs here? Or do you guys want to maybe unbiasedly bet and go with the Atlanta Braves at minus 131? If you guys want to dabble with this, picks, lines, props, you name it, BetUS has you covered with this, as well as their casino as well. But especially when it comes to the Mets, everybody, at plus 119, those are juicy odds for sure, but I feel hard-pressed to go out of my way to bet consistently on my Mets right now with the slide that they've been on. So I will throw probably $20 on the plus 119, and I'll leave it on that. And that is what I'm going to go with here for game one. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Let me know all your thoughts and comments down below from our latest Big Mets update segment. Check out my latest segment there with my good friend Jolly, all there from the Shea Station podcast, as I was the co-host on his latest Shea Station podcast earlier today. Also check me out as I will be in a segment that you guys will see on the New York Post Sports YouTube channel with my guy Brandon in London, as I'm actually going to be recording with them shortly after I'm done here at the time of recording this today. So be on the lookout. That should drop before game one against the Braves later on this evening. Until then, folks, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace.